Listen, I have been studying Columbo now for about I always watch Columbo when he came on a regular basis. But about 6 months ago, we got the Hallmark Mystery Channel. Now, I don't watch any of the other ones, Murder, She Wrote, or the other ones. I'm not there yet on those. But I have recorded every Columbo. And so I have an inventory of about 40 right now. The other day, my DVR is 0 free space. And so, listen, this was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I hit delete on all the Columbos. And I'm back up to about 20. And I'm slowly knocking them out. And there's still some Columbo movies I have not seen before. So if y'all know Columbo, there's just a little clip. I found this on the DVD the other day.
Oh, one more thing, sir. We got something else on the gun. Did I mention that?
No, you didn't. What, Lieutenant?
A thread, sir.
From the parka?
No, sir. We haven't traced the garment from which the thread came from yet, sir.
Lieutenant, if I were you, I'd get a search warrant for all 4 people involved.
Yes, sir. That's just exactly what I've done, sir. In fact...
I know you're thinking, this is so silly. But this is the message this morning, is Columbo. And so, like I was saying earlier, I've got some things that I want to work out, go ahead and talk out, because I have been adding them to my notebook for a while. But Columbo could take a thread of evidence. If y'all watch Columbo, a feather blowing in the wind. Hey, the only person who had a goose down pillow out of all of those people was the murderer. He shot through the pillow, and when he got there, a feather blew through. Before it was over, he had intersected about 4 more places where that thing was. He found out who it was. One of the episodes lately, and I like the Columbos because he's always got a big name star, and that was William Shatner. You can tell how long ago that was because William Shatner's way old. Well, Columbo's way old. He passed away in 2003, I think. But one of the episodes that was on the other day, and I was watching it, and this older man, he was a Hollywood star, producer, what he was, and he had this beautiful young wife who was growing older, and she didn't have quite the jobs that she wanted to have. So she got the idea that I will get him, my husband, to produce this because he's loaded. And he was going, no way, I am not producing you another movie. He knew something about her that she didn't know. He had seen the doctor's report and knew that she couldn't do this. So he was really watching out for her, but she didn't know that. So she had planned to murder him. And so every night, he would take his sleeping pill. I don't know if any of y'all have seen this episode. He would take his sleeping pill to go to bed. Well, the wife decided to do this. She started walking in and opening the sleeping pill and putting it in his drink at night, so when he went to bed, he was overdosing. She found the gun, and she came in there, and after she had put her husband to sleep, she did away with him. Well, I'm sitting there watching this movie thinking how good this is. I take a melatonin every night. Who in here takes a melatonin? Who knows about melatonin? 4 or 5 people know about it. The stuff is really good. And when you first take it, you'll really have good dreams if it's good melatonin. So I'm watching this movie. Debbie is out. It must have been on like a Tuesday. She's out shopping for groceries. She comes in, and I'm watching this lady. She's putting her husband to sleep, and Debbie walks right in with a jar of melatonin and says, baby, look what I have found. It's a soluble. It dissolves on your tongue. It goes to work just like that. They've got it at Walmart. Nature's Best melatonin. And so I was going like, oh my gosh, Deb. I said, that's the way she's killing her husband. And you walk in here with the melatonin. Now, Debbie can verify all of that, can't you, sweetheart? She knows it's true. I told her this a couple of years ago. This is my theory. Okay, so when you hear Jay passed away, Let's hope it's suddenly, okay? Because this is what I'm going to do. And I've already talked to the Lord about this. So, Lord, this is the way I hope it happens. It's whenever it happens, I'm just going to hold on. Whatever's close to me, I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold on tight, and I'm going to say, okay, let's go. Whatever has got to happen, let it happen. And I'm just going to hold on through it because I know it's probably going to hurt for a second. And I said, but let's go. Let's do it. And so I had told Deb also a couple years ago. I said, look, if I were to be in the hospital and it would be bad, don't take any extra steps to keep me going. I mean, y'all all feel that way, right? Don't take any extra steps to keep me going. I said, so that's just the way I want to do it. Then I got to thinking about it. And so I went back to Deb. I said, let me clarify that. If they say that I'm going to recover, then give me the medicine. See, I don't get to do this again for 1 year. Josh only gives me one shot a year. And so I've got to do everything I can. He has to unpreach it next week. He can start, let me undo everything my dad said. Oh, praise the Lord. Okay, this is some of the stuff I just wanted to unpack right quick. If you don't get offended, if the first thing is you get offended and you want to leave, don't. It's not going to be what you think. Who has ever heard this term? A basket full of deplorables. If you've heard that term, raise your hand. You've heard that term? No? But enough of you have heard it to know that it is out there. And that's simply a way of saying, God, there's some people I just don't like. There's some people I don't want to hang around with. There's some people that are just yucky. And Jesus had this problem. I mean, think about, I've got some verses here, but think about the problem that Jesus was having. He was talking to the scribes and the Pharisees, the upper echelon, if you will. It was the elite people, and they would invite him over for lunch, for dinner. And so he would come in, but who would sneak in the room? Those deplorable people. I mean, right. Am I right? They would come in, and then the scribes and Pharisees would say this, does he not know who he's eating with? Does he not know who he's drinking with? Does he not know that woman, does he not know that those people are sinning? Does he not know that that's a publican, that that's a tax collector, that that's a Jewish person that's turned his back on his own nation? Does he not know that those people, you know what Jesus said? He said, who did I come to save? Come save the lost. Didn't come to save the righteous and the people who say listen, the intellectual, I used the word just a minute ago, they say, well, we're righteous, but he's coming down, he's hanging out with those sinners. So that does kind of have a political overtone, if you see what I mean. But look what he says in, you can go ahead and start in Luke chapter 15, verse 1. I come across this verse in Vacation Bible School because one of the Vacation Bible School sets of stories was the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. All of those start with verse 1. And so I was looking at those verses, looking at that, and I was going like, and then drew near to him. Now, where did he start this off at? If you go back the next chapter, he starts this off at the Pharisees' house, the elite's house. And then he's talking to them, and they're going like, golly, look at who's coming. These people that we don't want to hang out with are coming. And it says, then drew near to him all the publicans and the sinners to hear him. And they're going like, God, this guy will hang out with anybody. Thank goodness, right? Because listen, guys, we are the anybody. If you will, we are the deplorables. If you will, we are the sinners. We are the publicans. We are that group. We're not the elite or the, whatever the other word for it is. That's not us. In Mark chapter 12, verse 37. And like I say, I'm just unpacking some ideas right here. Jesus is talking to him about how did David call his own son Lord, and the scribes and the Pharisees are going, God, this guy is so above us. And it goes on, and David therefore called him Lord, henceforth called him then as his son. And they're going like, man, how can we even answer this question? And then the common people heard him gladly. The common people. And I know it's like, okay, man, but that's who we are. That's who hears. And it does have a political overtone to today. You know what? I'm getting tired of getting talked down to. It's common people. Now, okay. Now there's another verse here. Matthew 23:24. You blind guides, you strain at a gnat and you swallow a camel. Who has heard this? You raise your hand if you've heard this, so you can verify that I'm not making this up. Because if I told you this, I would go, you got to be kidding me. Who has heard that in California, when this law gets finalized, if you drink your cold drink through a straw, 6 months in jail or $500 fine? Who has heard that? I know you're kind of like, are you crazy, Jay? That's true. Strain at a gnat and you swallow a camel? I mean, visualize that in your mind. Walt Disney World says that they're going to adhere to this new rule. Starbucks is adhering to this new rule. It's to save the planet. Is to the straws. The other night at my house we had one of the meet and greets. And two of the people out there with their little kids put carbonated Coke in their sippy cups. And you know what happened? The guys would tighten it up, and in a few minutes that Coke is going skeeting out of there. And going like, what's happening? And one of the moms went, man, you can't put carbonated drink in a sippy cup. Well, $500 fine. And you say, well, like say, y'all just hold on. Our Declaration of Independence says this: we hold these truths to be self-evident. Now, guys, do you know that some things are right and some things are wrong? Drinking Coke from a straw cannot be that big of a deal. Okay, now, Deuteronomy 32:7 and 8. Because one of our big deals now is boundaries, borders. Should a nation have borders? Remember the days of old. Consider years of many generation. Ask your fathers. Guys, I wish that sometimes you'd do that more. You know, there's some, may not be no wisdom with me, but there is wisdom with older generations. They've seen things. You ever wonder why a house mostly was on a hill? Well, they knew it had a flood every once in a while. Now, I know you can't do that all the time nowadays, but there was reason people made decisions that they made. Remember the days of old, consider the years of many generation. Ask thy fathers, and he will show you, the elders, and they will tell you. When the Most High divided the nations, now this is also similar in Acts. When the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, he spread the sons of Adam and set the bounds of the people according to the numbers of the children of Israel. It goes on to say that Israel is my portion, Israel is my part. They are my inheritance. Out of all the earth, one people, God says, these are mine. Now all of the rest of the earth can be overspread by men. But he says that, and we know it. If you look at a map, you see all these squiggly lines. You look at Caddo, DeSoto, you see all these squiggly lines. Well, what's going on? You've got creeks, and you've got rivers, and you've got mountain ranges, and you've got oceans. And they divide up. 47th parallel, a little short, divides us from Canada. St. James River comes down to the Great Lakes. Natural boundary. You go down to the south of us. You got the Rio Grande River, natural boundary. You go to the east, you get the Atlantic. You go to the west, you get the Pacific, natural boundary. And God said it all along. I mean, you didn't have to go far to figure these things out. Jesus on creation. Because we hear this so often is, man, I don't believe in creation. I believe in evolution. Let's see what Jesus had to say to that. Matthew 19:4. Matthew 19:4. When he answered and said to them, have you not read? He which made them from the beginning, made them male and female. You know, you think like, everywhere you go, you got to be, oh no. You hear preachers saying this. Theist evolutionists. There even sometimes will say, no, we believe God, God started something, but then he let it all happen. Man, leave God out of it. You know, if you're going to go evolution, just go all the way evolution. It's the thing evolved. But then you got to have a planet like we looked at last week. Who was here last week? Okay, who was somewhere else last week? I know it, I couldn't help to do that, Josh. Anyway, God says, Jesus says, he says, I believe this, I believe this. You get to Jonah, and you have so many people say the same thing. They go, man, how can you believe this story? Matthew 12, verse 40 and 41. For as Jonah, now this is Jesus, this is in red in your Bible, so this is Jesus saying, he confirms this. Though the world, listen, everything that we say is true because we find it in the Scripture, the world says is not true. Without exception. If we say true, the world says not true. Well, Jesus said this. And look, if Jesus is lying to us, he is not the Savior. We throw all of this stuff away on these very small little things. If Jesus is wrong about this, then what's good in any of this? But this is what he says. For Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the whale's belly, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. Jesus says it. The New Testament says about Noah, as Noah was warned in the chapter of faith, as Noah was warned of what was coming, he prepared for himself and his family an ark. And we go like, man, this can't be true. But it is true. Because if we accept that the New Testament is true, if we accept verse 1 of the Bible, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, if we accept that is true, and we have to, because that's where last week's message was, you can't have all of this without a creator. There has to be a beginning. The atheists say there was a beginning. If there was a beginning, if chapter 1:1 is true, in the beginning, God. And last week we did that clip on the Big Bang. I almost would like to hit that again. That was just so... Who missed that last week? Didn't get to see the Big Bang? I don't even know if that's still on there or not. Man, that was so much fun. You know, forget whether it was a bang or not. This morning on the news, y'all saw the news this morning. They recorded the sound of the sun. Who's heard that already? I'm the only one. I'm the most up on the thing. And so the commentator said this on Fox News, said, you would think the sound of the sun would be bang, 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 bang. Like, who would think such a thing? It's a steady, it's what they come, and I think they're just, I don't know. But that's probably the way the Big Bang started. It started with a hum of God and a blue light of the awesomeness of God. Now, okay, that was homework. I wanted to get that off. I've just been writing these little notes for months, thinking, one day I'll say something about those things. And so, all right, what is the most important thing about you? If I had to ask this question, what is the most important thing about you? And this is where I want to hit Matthew 28, verse 17. The most important thing about you. Anybody want to throw out something? Just go ahead. God's not done with you yet. That's exactly right. My mom she was in a nursing home and she was not doing good, and she didn't, she passed away a couple years ago, and she would say something to me. She'd say, I'm no good anymore. I can't do anything good anymore. And I'd go, Mom, God's not done with you yet. As long as you're breathing, God's not done with you yet. To the very last moment. I sat there next to her that morning. She passed away, they called. And I went up there, and she's laying in her bed. And I looked at her and talked with her just a little bit, and then I covered her face up. And even then, God wasn't through with her yet. Because he still uses her still today. Wow. Thank you for that. What's the most important thing about us? And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. And you'd almost say, how in the world could this be that some would doubt? They've witnessed everything now. They've witnessed the resurrection. They witnessed Christ on the cross. They witnessed the death. They witnessed the 3 days in the grave, and they've witnessed the resurrection. And they stand there. There they are at the Mount of Olives, and this is right before he leaves, and they're going, oh, praise God. But some of them, in their heart, they were going, I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. Is this real? Is this really happening? Is this real? You see, and that's where the world is today. And that's where some of us are today. Nobody in here can say that you've never doubted. None of us can say that we don't doubt all the time. We let things get in our way. And I don't know whether this is a good thought or a bad thought. But when I see things that kind of get in the way, you know what I'm kind of starting to say is like, praise God. Because it has to be something that is desirable that gets in your way, is thank God for the beauty of all the things that he has done. I was telling the first service, I was over in Marshall yesterday, and I picked up my four-wheeler, my John Deere Gator from the shop over there. And there was a family there at the Chevron, which is right next door in Marshall. There's a family there that everything they owned was in this little tore-up, destroyed little RV house. And you can see where somebody had hit, and the side was caved in and knocked off, and they had some 2x4s there with some paneling on the inside. And I drove by, and I was with the salesperson there. And I said, here I am coming over here to pick up my John Deere Gator in my new truck. And this is all these people have. They're traveling in their whole livelihood. Everything they have is right there. If God, what I'm trying to do is prove this in a way, and that's where you get to Columbo. Columbo would always do like this. When he knew that somebody was telling him something, he'd go, yeah. They would never make this up. You got to watch more Columbo, son. You just... They would never make this up. What we have right here, if what the world says is true, they would never make this stuff up. They would never say that Jesus was a child of a prostitute because Joseph didn't marry him. They wouldn't write stuff like that. They would never say he hung out and had his feet washed by prostitutes. They would never say he's a drunkard or a glutton. They wouldn't say that about if you were going to write this and you were going to make up a story, you would have the King of Kings being noble, born of nobility, coming from a castle. You wouldn't write it like this, born in a manger. You wouldn't write this. And if you're the writers of this, just think about what Mark did. Mark goes, hey, Peter, I'm fixing to write a gospel. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say that Jesus called you Satan. Get thee behind me, Satan. And Peter would probably go like, why in the world are you going to write something like that about me? And John is going to go, and I'm also going to write, I outrun you to the tomb because you're just a weak slowpoke. And he'd go like, why are you going to write this kind of stuff about me? And Luke would probably go, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say you, and John said this, I'm going to say you denied him 3 times, and you couldn't even walk on water. Now, if you were going to write this, you wouldn't write it like this, would you? Now, Peyton yesterday, I love that he came in the little shop out there, and he says, man, you can't make this stuff up. You said that, Peyton, yesterday. You can't make this stuff up. And I thought, yeah, what you don't know is that's the message tomorrow. I heard my gator crank up, boom, and if I was inside my little study, and Peyton doesn't normally get on it, Peyton is the family that lives in my yard. So you never know what you're going to say when you're up here. Peyton, you should do this sometime. Anyway, I heard the gator, the little four-wheeler crank up, boom, and all of a sudden, whoom, through the pasture he went, and I thought, he would usually come in and say, hey, Mr. J, I'm going to drive your gator around the pasture. But he would never get on it and go boom like that. And I thought, man, well, I wonder what's going on. So I run outside and I'm looking, and there goes my gator, boom, through the pasture. And Peyton is running. The gator is going, and there's 3 dogs chasing my herd of cows, and they're on the heels of a baby calf. And Peyton runs out there, and he gets one of those dogs, rips the collar off of it, comes back to the house. He says, man, they were about to tackle that calf. Well, I still don't know what's going on. He said, man, if we'd have had a gun, we'd have shot him. Peyton gets my .22 pistol, and there he goes out again. Boom, out there in that pasture. Boom, 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 boom. I'm like, golly, I said, we got brand new neighbors. These people have not been here. TC just leased his place off to Skip. And we got brand new neighbors, and Peyton's out there, boom, boom, boom. I'm going like, golly. And he goes to the guys. He says, a good thing I didn't have a rifle, because I'd have shot all 3 of them dogs and we'd have drug them off. He comes back, and I said, well, man, good going, Peyton. He said, and he goes, you can't make this stuff up. That's the fun of living down Frank Burford Road. Down in the deep country. That's the fun of it. You see, you couldn't just make this stuff up. You wouldn't make this stuff up. It's all of the things that they say about each other. You wouldn't make these kind of things up. The Bible proves itself. Last week when we were going through and looking at creation, listen, creation proves God. We prove God. The DNA in our body proves God. But God proves himself in his word. There are times like if you have an accident, oh my gosh, like last week I was saying, I just about ate the tail end of a trailer coming out of Shreveport because of a phone call. And I did end up looking at those pictures, Tommy. Those are impressive, But I'm like, I am not going to pick up a phone again while I'm driving down the road and look at it, because I look back up and like, whoa, that truck has stopped in front of me. But if you have an accident, what you want multiple witnesses. You don't want one witness. See, the Bible could have been like this. If you would have, it's like taking a test exam, and how do you know if the kids are cheating? They all got the same answer. Because sometimes you hear this, well, you can't believe the Bible because you got 4 different stories. You got 4 different variations of a story. It's exactly how it should be. If you have an accident or something happens, you want to talk to this witness, and then you want to talk to this witness, and you want to talk to this witness, and then you want to talk to this one that saw it. But you don't want to ever let those witnesses talk together before you get their information, because you want to know the little pieces of detail that are out there. And that's exactly what God has preserved for us in the Bible. Now, I asked Amy, it's a good thing having a judge as a daughter. One of the problems with having a judge as a daughter, you can't get out of anything. I am snake bit now. When I pass a cop, I look back behind me, is he following me? And do I have my seatbelt on? Because I am going to get a ticket. Listen, when I see a policeman, I hit the brakes, and I go I hope you don't think I was speeding. You can see I'm hitting the brakes. That meant I didn't want to be speeding. And even though my seatbelt doesn't work right on my truck, I have to jimmy it around to make it come back up. Listen, I put my seatbelt, because the last 2 tickets I've had I'm going can you believe I'm getting a seatbelt ticket? Okay. So I asked Amy yesterday, I said, so what is jury instructions? This is a little long, but let me read it. Because you're all in a jury. You get to decide, is this true or not? You decide this. Okay. Now that verse said that they worship God, but some doubted. You've got to understand. This is something that I need to go ahead and just say. Though you are the jury and you will decide for your own life whether this is true or not, your doubt will not stop this from being true. All of the professors in the world, the New Testament professors who are atheists in the world, can tell you that this is not true, because it was written by the disciples who were religious people. Their doubt of its truth will never turn it into being an untruth. It is true. But for yourself, you must decide this. So here are jury instructions. You are the exclusive judge of facts. As jury, you shall alone determine the weight, the credibility of the evidence. You are to find the evidence which facts have been proven and the facts that have not been proven. For this purpose, you determine the credibility of the witness. It is your determination of the weight of the credibility of the evidence as the sole judge of the credibility of witnesses and the weight thereof of the testimony it deserves. You shall scrutinize carefully the testimony and the circumstances under which the witnesses have testified. You may take into consideration the probability or improbability of the statement of the witness, their opportunity to the knowledge of the facts which they testify, their reliability in noting and remembering facts, their demeanor on the stand, the interest of the lack or a lack of in the case, the extent to the testimony that support or contradict other evidence. Every circumstance surrounding and giving of their testimony may aid you in weighing their statements. If you believe a witness in the case willingly or deliberately testified falsely to any material for the purpose of deceiving you, then you are justified in disregarding the entire testimony of such witnesses as proving nothing and nothing that is worthy of belief. You have the right to accept as true and reject as false the testimony of any witness in whole or in part. You are impressed as to his or her truthfulness. Now, I kind of stumbled around on that. But Amy will read this to every jury. You get to decide. Is this probable? Is this true? There is no way that you could have made all of these things. There's no way that you would put this kind of information in the Bible of the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. You realize that in his genealogy in Matthew, there are Rahab and Tamar, who are both prostitutes. There is Bathsheba in his genealogy. And Bathsheba is not even named as a name. It simply says, this is after David, then you have Uriah's wife, saying that David is the murderer in the genealogy of Jesus. You have David, then you have Uriah's wife, who he killed, David killed. And you put that in the testimony. There is no way that you would ever, as a writer, if you were going to fictitiously write a book, you would not have done it like that. And in the Bible, there is, Mary is the only Hebrew woman. Out of all the women who are listed, only one Jewish lady is listed, and that's Mary. So you would have never made it up like this. And this is kind of where we get into Columbo. There are some things in the Bible, and I just kind of want to go through. I don't know how many people have ever been to Israel and seen Peter's house. Who's been to Israel in here? 1, 2. So there's been a little handful. Well, one of the things that you'll do when you go there is go to Peter's house. Now, I don't know if he can pull this picture up. So you saw this when you went to Israel. They have a church built over the top. You walk over the top of it, and you look back down into it, and you look at Peter's house. Well, we get this story. Let me find this. We get this story in Matthew chapter 8:14. Matthew 8:14. And so we'll put that up there. I think we'll put that up there. I hope we'll put that up there. If not, I'll just have to go through them real fast. Matthew 8:14. Okay, Matthew 8:14. And when Jesus was come to Peter's house, he saw his wife's mother laid and was sick of a fever. And he touched her hand, and the fever left her, and she arose and ministered unto them. And when the evening was come, they brought him many that were possessed with devils, and he cast out the spirit with his word and healed all of them. Okay, so there's a question. And so we're going to go through a couple questions in the Bible. Is why in the world would you wait all day long? I mean, he went to Peter's house and saw the mother-in-law sick, and it says, man, they waited till afternoon in order to heal, in order to begin this process of healing. And if something's happening like this in little old town of Capernaum, you would like, man, if they're healing, if Jesus is at Capernaum, he's at Peter's house, and he has healed his mother-in-law, why don't the multitudes come? Well, that's where you have to do a little Columbo work. Mark chapter 1, verse 29. Let's show the picture. Okay, first of all, let's go ahead and read it. And this is a different account. Can you get the picture of Peter's house in the synagogue? Okay. Now, if you've been there, and this is the coolest thing because they bring you right there. It's right outside of Lake Galilee. And one of the first things you do when you get there, they give you the tour of the synagogue. So you're walking through this thing, and it's got round columns that they placed back on because all this was knocked down. They reconstructed this. It's the original stone, and you walk, and you're like, my gosh, look, Jesus walked right here. If y'all been there, then you remember this. You remember you did exactly what I'm saying. Jesus was right here. And you walk out, and the next thing that you walk to on the tour is Peter's house. Why did they wait till evening? Now let's go back over to Mark right quick. Mark 1:29. Forth when they came out of the synagogue, okay, now we know. It was the Sabbath day. You see, Matthew doesn't tell us that. That's why you have to have the other witnesses. That's why you have to have the 4 accounts in order to get what the picture is happening. For when they came out of the synagogue, they entered into the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. But Simon's wife's mother lay sick of a fever. And they went and they told, what's that word aeon mean? And when he came, he took her by the hand and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and she ministered unto them. And at evening, here we go, at evening, you see, if you know the Jewish days start in the morning and they go from evening to evening. So now we are now passing the Sabbath day, the Saturday. We're entering into a new day, Sunday, the first day. And as evening, when the sun did set, okay, this is a new day. See, on the Sabbath, they couldn't do anything. You couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't do anything. You went to the synagogue and you worshiped if it was close enough, but you didn't do anything. And they brought to him all that was diseased, and it was possessed and devils, and he began to heal, and that was the service started. Well, you wouldn't have known that if you wouldn't have picked up a couple of different Gospels and to begin to read that. Okay, the feeding of the 5,000. And y'all all know this story. And this is one for me. I was like, this has always been kind of interesting to me. But John chapter 6, verse 5. But when Jesus lifted up his eyes, he saw the great multitude come, and he said unto Philip, where are we going to buy the bread that we may eat? Who have ever wondered about that? Why are you picking on Philip? I'm always like, there's got to be more. Who knows the answer to this story? Who knows the answer? Were you at first service? You already knew the answer? Good deal. Well, what in the world are they picking on Peter for? Picking on Philip for? Okay, you turn to Luke chapter 9, verse 10 through 17. And the apostles, when they were returned, they went with him and told him all that had been done. And he took them and he went privately aside into a desert place belonging to the city, which is called Bethsaida. And so we find out that, and this is the continual part of the story of the feeding of the 5,000. Now we know where it's at. We didn't find out where the story was at from the first part of it, from the first, and when John was talking about it. But now we find out, hey, they were in Bethsaida. Okay, John chapter 1, verse 43 and 44. Now we're going to find out why would Jesus pick on Philip. Like in the day following, he goes forth into Galilee. He finds Philip and says unto him, follow me. Now Philip was of Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. And so, see, it takes all 3 of them. Luke answers the question that John first gave us. And then John, in another way, answers the question by telling us where this disciple came from. You see, you've got it. Those are self-confirming evidences that God has placed in the Bible. They're hidden little treasures, if you will, that God has placed into his book. When I was saying like this is kind of a Columbo thing, but this is what, it's more than just, I believe in Jesus Christ. Maybe it's not more than that, but listen to what I'm trying to say is that sometimes we need the evidence that's deeper than, believe me, just because I say so. And you can say, listen, I've studied this, or I know this, and I have confidence in this, that this is true, that this is really what God said. This is the truth of it. It's not that I'm simply only believing in faith. Yes, faith, I do believe in faith, but my faith is rooted in structure of history. Listen, nobody, when they go to it and nobody questions the truthfulness that Jesus Christ. And I brought with me the book of Josephus. I don't know if I'll get to read into that or not. But even historians that were not Christians, that had nothing to do with Christ in the church, they go, hey, there was a man named Jesus. And he came from the parts of Judea, and he was crucified. That's in this book, who is a secular history man. He said he came from Judea, and he rose from, and he just says it, and he rose from the dead. That's in chapter 19 of the iniquities part of Josephus. And it says, and the sect is still in existence till this day. And this is sometime before 100 AD. And the sect is still in existence until this day. You get to Pilate. No, if I can, let me go through this one. Luke chapter 23, verses 2 and 3. And they began to accuse him, saying, we found this fellow perverting the nation, forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, saying himself that he was the king, Christ the king. And Pilate asked him, saying, Are thou king of the Jews? And he answers, Thou sayest it. And Pilate, to the chief priests and the people, he says, I find no fault in this man. Okay, now think about what just happened right here. Judge Amy, my daughter is a judge, and so she's got a guy who says, I am guilty. I mean, that's what Pilate said. Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus says, I am. I plead guilty to the charge of being king of the Jews. And so what does Pilate do? He goes out to the chief priest. He says, I find this man innocent. Well, man, that's totally backwards. And so you think, it's like, okay, now Pilate, why did you do this? He pleads guilty, but you find him innocent, though he says, I am guilty. Okay, so you go to John chapter 18, 33, and we'll read a few verses through there. John 18, and Pilate entered into the judgment and called Jesus and said to him, Art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus answered him, saying, This thing, saith thou this thing of thyself, or did someone else tell you? And Pilate answered, I am a Jew of thy own nation, and the chief priest has delivered thee unto me. What have you done? Jesus answered, My kingdom, see, here it is. You wouldn't have found this in other places. My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, then would my servants fight, that I should not be delivered to the Jews. But now my kingdom is not from hence. Pilate therefore said unto him, Art thou a king? Jesus answered, said, I am a king. To this end was I born, and for this cause I came into the world, that I should bear witness of the truth. Everyone that is true hears my voice. Then Pilate said, What is truth? And he had said this. He went out again into the Jews and said unto them, I find no fault in him. You see what just happened? It just got clarified for us. You're a threat to Caesar. You're a threat to me, Pilate. And Jesus goes, You don't have anything to worry about. This is not my kingdom on the earth yet. Not right now. My kingdom is heaven. My kingdom is in heaven. But if you didn't throw the two together, you would go like, what in the world's going on here? What's going on? I'm just going to briefly talk through this next one. But Joseph is bringing, because I know we're just about out of time, Joseph is bringing Jesus back from Egypt. And Joseph, through a dream, God says, don't go through Jerusalem. Don't go through Judea. Stop in Galilee. And that's the reason I bought the book from Josephus. You would read that and you'd go, well, I wonder what happened. Why would the angel of God stop? Why would Jesus hear this? And I bring this only to say, this historian that has nothing to do with the Bible, he records what's happening in Jerusalem that very year. 250,000 lambs have been killed. There are people from all over. It says that the temple area is filled with people. There are many tents outside the temple wall, and there's thousands of people inside the temple and around the temple on Passover. And that a riot breaks out, and he sends the army in, and he kills 3,000 men, slaughters them, and calls Passover off. That's why when he's coming through, he stops and goes to Galilee. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? And you think, well, what would cause all of these things? Why in the world would the disciples, they're Jewish people, we're proving this. What would cause them to change from going to being Jews? Listen, they were slaughtering lambs. Think about it. Hundreds of thousands of lambs every year were being slaughtered till the Lamb of God got nailed to a tree. You can see they don't do it anymore. The Christians stopped just like that. Why would they do such a thing if this wasn't true? Something shook them to their core. They worshiped only on one day, the Sabbath day. Our Saturday, if you will, the Sabbath day. And listen, you could be put to death for not treating the Sabbath day with the respect. You had to worship on the Sabbath day. Everything was around the Sabbath day. It's even one of the 10 Commandments. Interesting, which is never repeated in the New Testament. All the rest of them are, except for that one. They were worshiping on the Sabbath day, and just like this, they quit. And they're worshiping on the first day of the week. What could cause such a thing? What could shake people to their core in that time, in that speed? Jesus is in the tomb. Where are the men at? Think about that for a minute. If you're writing this, Jesus is in the tomb. Where are the men? Hiding. Fearing. You were writing this, you'd never write that. And the women, listen, the brave women on the first day of the week, they go to the tomb and they find the tomb empty. They run back and tell the women, the tomb is empty, he is risen, we met him on the road. And the men are going, ain't no way, you're crazy. Then they begin to run. What could cause such an earthquake event in the people's lives that formed what we're doing today, the church? It had to be a tremendous event. You know what it is? It's called the resurrection of Jesus Christ. The ascension of Jesus Christ. The verse that we started out, Matthew 28:17, if you'll go back to that. It said when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. Listen, we're getting to the end of the doubt for the disciples, okay? Right there, they're still doubting. But we're getting right to the end of the doubt right now. You keep on reading that, you'll see, hey, they had no doubt anymore. They were all martyred. I'm not saying that word right. Say it for me. Yeah, I'm gotten like martyred. I'm not putting bricks together. It's just my speech is not letting me say it. They all died for their beliefs. Listen, if you were trying to make this stuff up, you wouldn't have done it this way. Think about where they buried Jesus. I know we're out of time. They buried him in the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea. Would you have buried him in a Jewish tomb? He was a member of the Sanhedrin. They buried him, not the disciples. The disciples lost control of the body. He was put to death by the high priest. The Sanhedrin put him to death. Where did they bury him? In the tomb of one of the members of the Sanhedrin. You'd have never done this if you were going to make this story up. They said, hey, the disciples came and stole his body out of the grave. And then they say, hey, we'll pay you money. That's verse 16 of that. We'll pay you money. It says it's believed till this day. We'll pay you money. What? Say what? That his body is missing. You see what's happening there? They're admitting to the whole world. Because if they wanted to straighten this out, having him in their tomb, a Jewish tomb with their guard, they would have went and got the body of Christ and they said, this thing is foolishness. Here he is. They're going, we got to do something. We're making up a lie. We're paying the soldiers off. You went to sleep. You know, there's a couple bad things about soldiers falling asleep. You're going to get put to death to do it. Soldiers didn't fall asleep. Jesus was resurrected. It was an earthquake event. And that brings in Christianity. That brings in our faith. That brings in who we are. There are a lot of reasons that we know this is true. It's not simply that we've believed in a tale, but we've believed in a tale that can be verified and that is true. That is true. Have that confidence. This is not a message that's supposed to bring you to any particular deep emotions, but have that confidence to know, yes, I know this is true. It is verified through creation. It is verified through proof of the Word. It is verified. Also, you can make the whole story, if you didn't have the Gospels, through secular people telling of the events that happened there that day. Thank y'all.